Hello and welcome, my students. This video is especially for my BS Part 3 students who are in the morning batch as well as in the evening batch. Now, I've been with you people since more than a month. So now in this 1 month, yesterday, I was conducting your lab and I was not at all getting few things. And I just thought that I must explain you again, because you are not catching exactly what you are doing there in that particular organic chemistry lab. So what is your course this time? What is your assignment? What you are supposed to do in this lab, right? I must tell you briefly in this short video. You will be provided few compounds that are pre-prepared by different renowned scientists. So what you are going to do, that these are all known compounds, right? You are not going to synthesize them. No, it's not synthesis. It's simply identification of those compounds, identifying those compounds, and those identification needs few steps, right? You cannot identify a compound just by looking at its state. You will go through a series of steps, right? So I will give you 4 to 5 compounds to identify, and I will tell you the names of the compounds. Some of the names I will tell you, and some of the compounds will be remain as unknown. So you will find them, and you will discover their identity by going through different steps. Now, if I hand over you a powder, a whitish powder, a yellowish powder, or a compound, or a liquid, or a solvent, some sort of a liquid compound, right? So what you're going to do, you have to, first of all, there are 4 steps in which you are going to identify your compound. That is your number 1 is your preliminary examination, right? Number 2 is your detection of elements. Number 3 is your classification test, and number 4 is your melting point determination. So I was telling you about, the 4 steps you are going to. These are the 4 steps which you will perform in the lab, right? And the first step is preliminary examination. That tells you about the nature of your organic compound, the state which is it is in, right? It is, if it's in the liquid state, if it's in the solid state, if it's an amorphous powder, if it is crystalline, whatever its state is, you will see the state, and then you will smell it, and you will check its smell, and that is called odor. Then you will check the different other tests that are odor, then the color of the compound, of course, and then you will check the litmus test. Litmus test tells you about the pH of the compound, right? It tells you about what pH range it is coming in, right? And then you have the solubility test. Now, this is a very important test that is, you must know whenever you are identifying, you are exploring a new compound, you must know in which particular organic solvents. Now, what are organic solvents? Ethyl alcohol, methyl alcohol, distilled water. These are all the solvents which you are going to use: carbon tetrachloride, chloroform, N-hexane, right? So benzene, toluene. These are all the series of solvents, organic solvents, and some ether, diethyl ether. They are some of them are very volatile, as for example ether. So now you have to check your compound solubility in number of these solvents. Every time you need, you will just fill in a test tube a small portion, that is almost about half ml of your solvent, any solvent available that is available in the lab. Just take that solvent and put few granules of your compound which you are identifying, right? And try to check its solubility. First, at the room temperature, just check if it is getting dissolved in that particular solvent. Then if not, then check it over the flame. Just warm it a little bit and just see if it gets dissolved on warming, or if it's soluble at the room temperature. And record your data whatever you are checking. Just record your data every time, right? So this is what you need to know. Then comes, I don't have your scheme in my hand. Then you have the saturation, unsaturated saturation test. So that tells you about that whether your compound is a saturated compound. If it's an unsaturated compound, that is double single bonds are there or not, right? That is Bayer's test also. Then you will check the solubility in any acid and any base, right? So this is how the preliminary examination ends. Then comes the detection of elements, in which you are going to prepare the Lassinger's filtrate, that is sodium extract, and your sodium extract should be perfect. I told you many times how to prepare it. I explained you many times how to do it and how to cut the small piece of sodium metal that should be silverish inside. That portion you need to cut it down, and you have to put it in the ignition tube, and then you're going to heat it over there. So this is a very small and a very simple procedure which you have been learning since you passed your class 9th or metric. It's a metric chemistry. It's a 9th class chemistry, right? It's nothing. It's not a rocket science that you can't do it, right? And your sodium is supposed to be colorless. It shouldn't be colored. And then you are going to perform the different tests for nitrogen, sulfur, and halogens. You know that your compound, whether it contain, of course it's an organic compound, so it's loaded with carbons, it's loaded with hydrogens, but what about the other elements? So you need to find out nitrogen, sulfur, and halogens in it. So you'll every time you will make the columns accordingly, as I told you, as I explained you, and then you are going to simply you're going to record your findings in the journal. This is how you're going to do the detection of elements. That is the step 2. Then you will jump to the third step, that is classification test, that whether your organic compound which has been given to you, it contains which functional groups are there, right? That is, does it have a hydroxyl group? If it has got a ketonic group is there, if it has got an aldehyde group, if it has got an ether, if it's an... So you need to find out different functions. If it's an saturated, unsaturated compound, so you need to find out all these functional groups through a series of steps. And based on your previous data, you are going to select the tests that are given in that list of tests that has been provided to you, which under the category of classification tests. Then in the end, that is you have to make the derivatives also, but I am not asking you to make the derivatives right now. That is something else. You have to prepare the derivatives also of the compounds. But before that, you need to check the melting point. Melting point, you have to check for the compound's identity. It's a very important physical factor, right? It's a physical property of your compound. You should know the melting point of your compound, because every organic compound has its own specific melting point. So you will check your compound's melting point through the classical method or through the melting point apparatus. Galen-Kampf melting point instrument is there. You can check it there with the help of a capillary tube. You need to fill it up, and then you can insert it inside, and you can check the melting point of your compound, and that tells you about the what compound you are dealing with. I hope now you know what you are doing in your organic chemistry lab, especially the evening class and the morning class. Both the batches, they should know what they are doing in the BS Part 3 lab. Please listen to this lecture and follow all the instructions I have just explained. Thank you very much.